All right, cool. So the webinar is live. Give me 1 second. Looks like we have a number of people already joining and waiting for us and trickling in now. So as everyone joins, feel free to put in the chat where you are joining from. We have myself, TJ from Payoneer, Chad from Skubana, and Tim from Deliverr. We will get into a little bit of deeper introductions in a couple minutes, and we'll begin shortly. So we're just going to let some people trickle in. Chad's in Florida, yeah. Got Brooklyn, got Seattle. Tim, where are you? North Carolina?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
And I'm currently in Austin, Texas. It's a pretty gloomy day out here, actually. The fog's rolling in. We have Harry from New Jersey, Mark from Ottawa, and Dean from LA, and Jairo from Atlanta. A lot of people still trickling in here. So we'll give it just another minute before we start, but we really do have quite a bit of information to share with you guys, a number of slides. So this will be recorded, and we will share the video and the slides after. So you don't have to worry about taking 100% notes on the action items here, but we'll go from there. And you guys can watch this or follow up at your leisure. Let's see. Okay, we are recording, just making sure. All right, cool. So I know people are still trickling in, but we're gonna get started because we do have a lot of content. So really excited for you guys to join us today. We are gonna be talking about omni-channel expansion, and specifically for online sellers, and what does that mean? So we brought Chad and Tim here today to talk to us a little bit about how each of their respective companies can help facilitate the omni-channel expansion. So Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Can you see these rays of sun shining upon me?
Absolutely, it's like glowing behind you.
I love it. I'm doing
Awesome.
well. So you want me to just share a little bit about Skubana?
Yeah, let's give a little bit of background on yourself and Skubana.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a first generation seller on Amazon, embraced the marketplace, then started going omni-channel, really spraying myself on Home Depot and Groupon and Wayfair and Walmart, Target, etc. Also found a need to actually create a software called Skubana to actually manage that entire process. So an operating system to help me manage order management, inventory, and profitability across those channels as it got more complex, especially with 2 different warehouses across the United States. And yeah, we just recently actually were acquired, which is interesting news, by a company that powers 3PL software on the back end. And so they're sort of the operating system for a lot of warehouses, and we're the operating system for brands. So it makes a really good connection. I'm really excited to be here today. So thanks for having me on and to share a lot of gold gems with those that are joining today.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that acquisition. And next we have Tim McDonald from Deliverr. Tim, how you doing?
Doing really well. How you doing?
Good. Why don't you let the crowd know who you are, what's Deliverr, why are you here?
Cool. Yeah. So obviously I'm Tim. I've been with Deliverr for about 1.5 years. Worn many different hats on like sales and business development. Right now, working most closely with our mid-market enterprise segment, which after all these rounds of funding is thankfully growing very quickly and working more and more with really established brands. Whereas historically, what we were working with a few years ago were a lot of merchants kind of going across different marketplaces. Now it's really about direct to consumer stores, offering and promoting fast delivery through, discovery channels like Facebook and Instagram, where all the people are nowadays. So high level, what are we? We're a distributed network of warehouses. We use a technology to bring all this infrastructure together. And so when merchants want to offer fast delivery, what they need is to have product close to their consumers before they even purchase it. So with Deliverr, we can help you distribute to multiple warehouses in different regions. And then when someone places an order, we just fulfill from the closest one. So high level, that's the service we offer, and what Deliverr's doing, a little bit about me.
Awesome. So fast fulfillment, and I mean, I know that's a key term, and we'll get into it in a little bit. So looking at the agenda here, we're going to talk about myself in the beginning and just briefly of why we're here. And I think this is important to just touch on every time you're on a webinar, every time you're listening to somebody speak. What are you going to get out of it? Why is it valuable for you? And sort of what are the actionable items at the end? Then Chad's going to go. Tim is going to talk about Deliverr in terms of the value of localized shipping and fast fulfillment and increasing brand exposure and all that can do for you. I will touch briefly on any sort of financial tools or funding you might need to take your business and brand omni-channel, because it's not going to be free. And then at the end, we'll have Q&A. So what I encourage you is from, throughout the presentation, if you have questions, put it in the Q&A. If I can, I will interrupt Chad and Tim and have them answer the questions on the spot. If not, we'll save them all to the end. So no big deal, but we will get to all of the questions. So why are we here? What we've done is, we try to bring together service providers and sellers and solutions and brands and really put them in a place to succeed. One of the main mantras of Payoneer is to go beyond. That might literally mean beyond borders, but also beyond expectations, right? So, if you thought I created a brand, I only sell on Amazon, this is all I can do. Unfortunately, you're wrong. There's a lot more opportunity out there. And with a lot of the tools that we're going to talk about today and the strategies, these guys are able to help, and Payoneer is too, just to be an incredible resource for you to make your dreams come true. And, there's a lot of talk lately about, the end of the road and the sort of exit strategies for brands, and putting yourself and creating a brand in the best position to succeed, to be the most attractive, the most valuable, to get you the best results, whatever that may be, has to start with taking the next step. So what we're going to do here is clear the doubt, any sort of ideas you might have or preconceived notions about omnichannel expansion, and then actually give you some actionable takeaways to go and start today, because there's no time like the present. So that being said, we're going to jump in and let Chad start talking about some key strategies for omnichannel expansion.
Yeah, thank you so much. And TJ, you're going to drive, so I'll just say like next or forward, and we'll wait. We have 100%. A lot to cover today. Yep. So my perspective has always been to diversify, and so I first started off on Amazon, and I always thought Amazon was a great place to start and never a great place to end. I saw it more as a channel. And I want to build a business around that channel. And so that's really what we did. But the first part of this presentation is really going to focus on Amazon. We're going to talk about off Amazon after this. So if we go to the next slide, it's nice to meet you. And I already talked about Skubana. We're an operating system for brands and retailers to go across many different channels and to manage their business and to automate the heck out of it. So if you want to check us out, check us out. If you want to hit me up, I'll give you my email at the end of the presentation. So we're going to talk about embracing Amazon, some channel expansion strategies, and then going omni with your product. And so if we can go to the first slide. All right. So to me, like this slide is just table stakes, right? What you need to have. It's definitely a noob slide, right? Having your own e-commerce site, embracing social media, especially the special social media channels where your customers live. Ranking for specific SEO keyword terms that you don't have to rent through PPC, but owning that position on Google. And then lastly, I think this is the most controversial one, is maintaining an Amazon brand presence. So if we go to the next slide, the reason why I say it's controversial is that there's a lot of brands that just actually refuse to play nicely with Amazon. And these are just a couple of them. And so they'll say, we don't want Amazon, we don't need it, it dilutes our brand. And I've heard this countless times, especially with there's certain brands that are using Skubana that also share the same perspective, that they don't have any control, There's no opportunity for us on Amazon. And for me, I always believe in seeing what you can learn from Amazon and seeing what you can learn from the customers that are shopping on Amazon, because Amazon has 50% market share of all online transactions. And so if we go to the next slide, you'll see just a simple search that I did for this presentation on Away Luggage. So Away Luggage is one of those brands that refuses to embrace Amazon. And on the left-hand side, when you type in Away Luggage, you can see who's advertising against their brand. So right away, people are looking for Away. Now, how do I know that? I've done some research to find out how many searches are being accomplished for Away Luggage. And on the right-hand side, I'm using a special keyword tool that I'm going to share as a bonus at the end of this presentation that everyone will have access to, which shows you in a pecking order what people are searching on Amazon for a given keyword, both before that keyword and after the keyword. And so for me, it's about being seen no matter where your customer is. And so if we go to the next slide, there's a lot of companies out there that, number one, don't want to have a brand on Amazon. And I suggest having just one SKU of your hero SKU on Amazon, like a SKU that's maybe a basic SKU. It could be if like you're selling sheets, you want to have a gray SKU on Amazon of like, because that's like that's the best SKU. But if they want other colors, they can find you off Amazon. But Amazon's a great place for social proof. Now, this is a little bonus I want to share, because I want to always provide value to those that are spending time with us and joining us for this presentation, is that if you're using Shopify, you can take any company's URL, and if you add this /collections at the bottom, you'll actually see some of the best-selling SKUs for Shopify, for a Shopify brand that's hosting on Shopify. Now, why is this important? Because now you can actually see what brands perhaps that aren't embracing Amazon, what's hot, and figure out a way to actually bring that to Amazon to essentially make your own magic with that specific product. So I just wanted to like share that as an interesting tidbit of some of these brands that are refusing to embrace Amazon, because you can capitalize on that. To me, anytime there's friction in that process, there's money to be made.
Well, Chad, I think also when we talk about, having a presence on Amazon, something like 50 to 60% of searches now start on Amazon. It's not as common as going to the search engine anymore. People want to know the delivery times and the Prime, and customer expectations have really changed things. So when you know how soon you're going to get an item, whether it's Prime or even 3 to 5 days, you know what you're getting with Amazon. That's why people are starting there. So if you don't have the presence there, like you said, you're just losing out. But it also, I think, provides an opportunity if you know that if you were a luggage seller, right, and Away is not there, like all those other brands had taken advantage of that opportunity to bid on those words for Away, right?
And yeah, and by the way, just on that, like Away is definitely losing market share because of this. Like, there's no question about it, but they have ego that's in the middle of it, of allowing them to make the right decision around this. And I do think the other point that you made, I thought was spot on, which is like 60% of people start on Amazon. Amazon's like a gateway drug. They never leave, right? They're just hooked on it. And so if you're not present on Amazon, you're pretty much not relevant. And so this is a great way to get started. And so this is something I alluded to earlier, which is essentially not only just being on Amazon for social proof. This is an example of Buffy the Comforter. You get your best SKU on there, your hero SKU, and then either they buy it through Amazon, or maybe they even you entice them by, maybe they would check out your site for customizations or limited edition drops that they're doing from their website. But also, even if you get that Amazon customer and they really like your product, it's likely they'll find a lot of other Buffy products off of Amazon that they'll be capitalizing on, which essentially increases the lifetime value of your customer.
And what I find interesting, Chad, is if you look across the top there, it says shop bedding from Amazon Basics, right? So you're not just competing with other sellers, you're competing sometimes with Amazon too, which, they're probably going to offer something cheaper. So you have to show your value in other ways.
Yep, completely. And I think the way to do that is by your reviews, by listing quality. There's a lot of ways to do that. And I think the other thing is like you get as a brand is that by embracing Amazon, you get a lot of information, conversion rate data, key customer data, insights that you wouldn't have normally if it's just going through your own site. And so I believe in actually using this just the same way Amazon's using data as they're data scientists at heart. You can be leveraging this data as well in your own business. So just another cherry on top of why I think it's important to actually embrace Amazon as a channel if you're not and you're coming to this webinar today just as a brand that's selling off Amazon. And then the next slide, DJ, is essentially Amazon actually just launched, and some people may or may not know this, a new tool that allows you to actually engage with the customers directly. And this was previously shunned upon by the company, and now is allowing brands to actually email customers and directly coordinate with customers to get them to buy more product, which is pretty cool. So that's new, something that happened. I suggest anything that comes up that's new in e-commerce, is like things in e-commerce expire after 3 weeks. It has a short shelf life. And so being able to capitalize on these things and do them quickly, first mover advantage is key in a world that's moving so quickly.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't heard of that actually. Is that obviously tied to creating your own like brand on Amazon? I know it said brand registry, but
Amazon store, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, an Amazon store, and they can follow you as a brand, right? And then you can actually directly communicate with the customers. The other thing is voice of the customer. I think this is also really important. Like, they give you tools that you can actually understand what are the issues people are having with your products. What are the listing issues, key defects issues, things that people don't like, commentary, et cetera, that you can actually work to improve on. I think that's a really nice thing to have. All right, and then lastly, with Skubana, right, with a software that allows you to be multi-channel, it allows you to actually see what customers shop where, understanding that customer behavior and the frequency of that behavior across Amazon and across your other channels, so you can understand the lifetime value of those customers across your channels. And then, so now we're segueing from Amazon to just, a lot of people like to say, oh, it's either Amazon or it's Shopify. And I really believe it's an and equation, right? It's Amazon and Shopify. It doesn't have to be binary. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to do one, I'm not going to do the other. It's not a zero-sum game. And so for me, I think I said this earlier, is I believe in like being wherever your customer is. So if your customer is on Amazon, you should be capitalizing on it. If they're going to be going into specific retail stores, right? That's a strategy that you should be embracing. I really come from the background of, I think that the days of going direct to consumer to be cheaper, faster, and direct isn't really sufficient enough to scale in e-commerce, especially in 2021, after e-commerce is so mature at this point, or much more mature than what it was. And so for me, I embrace going from direct to consumer to going direct to everywhere, D to E. And that allows you to de-risk sales channels, right, and create a customer experience. No matter where eyeball share is going, you're getting money share as well.
I haven't heard the phrase D to E before, but I really like that. I'm probably going to steal that, by the way.
Nice. It's okay. Just make sure you
Trademark
you give well, yeah, we trademarked it already. So all you gotta do is be like, yeah, this is from Skubana. And like, there's some new things that are happening I think are important to embrace, right? Especially if you're embracing a Shopify-like solution, would be like live e-commerce. Texting is big. I think SMS is a great channel that we've been embracing on my Shopify store. We use something called tone messaging, and I really like them. It's actually two-way live SMS, and it helps us recover our baskets far quicker for questions. So there's a lot of different things you can be leveraging to allow you to capitalize on more dollars to continue your brand strategy and your expansion across the business.
What I think is important when looking at some of these channels off the marketplace is you have the opportunity to own the client, right? And own their email for a longer term period. So, your communication and your relationship with the client is very different than it would be on the marketplace.
Yeah, I agree to that to an extent. I think that the marketplace could bring awareness to a brand, and if they absolutely love your serum for your face, but you have most of your other SKUs that are more important, or more of your new trending SKUs you haven't brought to the marketplace yet, it's a great way for you to actually get that business, bring that awareness off of the marketplace without pointing any fingers. And there's different strategies to do that, right? And just lastly, I just want to share on diversification. Like, you want to make sure that you're just layering on top other sales channels that allow you. And I think this also goes into talking about, like, you mentioned, TJ, acquisitions and exiting businesses, like you're going to get a specific multiple on EBITDA if you're just focusing on a channel. And if you're more diversified, you're de-risking the business, and it actually gives you multiple expansion in that process. So making sure that you're actually evaluating your diversification, how you're diversifying, and not just by channel, but you can also diversify by warehouse, which I'm sure Timothy's going to get into speaking about, so that you can get products as close to the customer as possible so you can maximize your margins associated with that product.
It's a very visually appealing chart over there.
And then this really was just about making sure you have the system to do it. And for me, like scaling my business, being on 10 different channels, I couldn't find a software out there that worked for me. I really was stubbing my toe. And so we had built Skubana out of my own pain from a seller's perspective to actually be able to scale. And so being able to have a tool in place that allows you to scale, like if you don't have a foundation for a house, I know somebody here is from New Jersey, and I don't want to be offensive, but essentially in New Jersey, they build malls on wasteland, right? That's something that's happened. And so you want to make sure that you're actually building a mall on firm footing so that actually it's not sinking or cratering in, so that you can actually scale the mall, right? And add more units to that mall, et cetera. So it's the same thing when it comes to software, right? The tech stack is so important and actually gives you a competitive advantage, especially if you can automate your business in real time.
100%. Now I think there's some secret sauce.
Yeah, so I think I shared this like keyword tool on Chrome that I thought was interesting. And so if anybody wants access to that tool, that essentially integrates directly onto Amazon as you're searching, you can see what's happening before and after the keyword and in pecking order. There's a bit.ly link here, and just pay attention to the capital letters. Capital letters are important, are sensitive in bit.ly. So maybe Ashley, who's joining the call, can just drop that exact link into the chat so people are aware of it and go crazy with it. It's a great tool. Feel free to check it out.
Cool. And you said it's a Chrome extension?
It's a Chrome extension.
Cool. Just before we hand off to Tim, and first off, Chad, well done. We went through a lot of slides there, so thank you for the promptness. But Laura had a question that said, besides Amazon, Walmart, and eBay, what channels does Skubana integrate with?
So we have our native channels, the typical ones, Amazon, Walmart, eBay, and then we have an app store, just like Shopify does, that allows you to expand anywhere you'd like. So we have middlewares that are connected. And so for me, I'm on Home Depot, Groupon, Wayfair, Overstock. I'm sure there's others that I'm missing. I'm on the international channels as well. We have some pretty tight integrations with Amazon, specifically around FBA, because if you're not FBA, you're also not relevant. So it's kind of it's table stakes to just even be Prime right now, Prime eligible. And so, yeah, feel free to shoot me an email, by the way. My personal email address is chad@skubana.com, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction, see if I can help.
And we will share the emails at the end. I have a slide with those on there. Just another question before you go, and I've seen the Skubana platform, and it's pretty awesome. And there's a couple questions here about ERPs or accounting softwares, and just within the Skubana store, I think that's what you call it, right? Or
the app store. We have an app store, yeah.
Right. So within the App Store, there's all these other tools. It's not just the marketplace side of things. It's all the other tools that you might use to run your business or can help your business, right?
Yep. So if you start doing brick and mortar and you need EDI, we have 4 different EDI providers in the App Store. If you want a repricer, we have repricers integrated. If you want a email ticketing software, we do that. We have connectors to all the warehouses. Right. Deliverr, for example, is in our App Store. So it allows you to have a seamless integration to Deliverr so you can actually expand. So we built a really nice ecosystem that allows you to essentially have, we shake what our mama gave us, right? We have a great operating system. It's somewhat like an ERP, but really purpose built for today and being nimble and agile in today's commerce. So it's order management, inventory, purchase order, forecasting, demand planning, and profitability. And then if you want to add other softwares to it, you just go right to the App Store and you make it happen.
Cool. Awesome. If you guys have any other questions for Chad, please put them in the Q&A and we will get to them at the end. Because now we are going to transition over to Tim and Deliverr. So quick poll question. So feel free to put it in the chat because I forgot to set up the poll. But where are you selling now? Are you traditionally, marketplace sellers? Or are you D2C? Are you D2E, as Chad mentioned? Let us know in the chat where your business is, who you're selling to, who you're working with. And we will give that just a second for some people to respond. Tim, in the interim, how are you?
Doing pretty good. I'm trying to think of a way to when Chad said shake what your mama gave you, I'm trying to figure out how to implement this into my pitch here. So we'll see.
There must be some
yeah, I'm gonna think on
it. I've seen those like interviews where someone gives people a phrase and they have to somehow loop it into a presentation. So looks like we have some people who are selling on just D2C, D2C and Amazon, just Amazon. So we do have a range, marketplace sellers on eBay, Walmart, and Amazon. So we do have D2C and marketplace sellers. So I think, Tim, we have a mix here. So I will hand this over to you.
It also looks like a lot of them are like channels that, we already fulfill, and we have like fast tags on today. So I'm glad to see that. Like one person is Walmart, Amazon, eBay, Shopify, Wish. It's right up my alley. So Kat, we need to talk sometime. But yeah, so the importance of diversification, I feel like Chad already, did a really good job on kind of touching on that importance. And, I think they're a great partner of Deliverr. We have a lot of mutual clients, and, where I think we work so well together is they're the technology and sort of the, intelligence behind going multi-channel. And what Deliverr is essentially the fulfillment behind it and offering Prime-like across all these different channels. So kind of enabling you to be successful with fast delivery everywhere you sell. I'm gonna go to the next one. So selling on one channel, what does that really mean? And I feel like, again, Chad already kind of hit on this really well. You're at the mercy of one channel. And I think everybody last year in particular, when they were selling on, say, just Amazon, then all of a sudden COVID hits, they can't send product in, there's limitations. And that can make your business go belly up overnight. You're reliant on just one place. And if you can't get it in, then revenue is not coming into you either. The other thing is that if someone buys from one channel, doesn't mean that they buy from another one. So for example, people who shop on Walmart, people who shop on eBay versus Amazon, etc. And I know one thing for me personally, this is very much just like a me thing, but I've been trying to get away from, Amazon. And so I think in a lot of ways, people are intentionally trying to avoid that channel. And so there is going to be a rising tide everywhere else. Cool. Want to go to the next one?
So we do have another poll question. So in the chat as well, what is your highest sales channel? Might be, if you're only selling D2C, then it is that D2C. Depending on the marketplace, which marketplace is your highest sales channel? So we have people saying eBay, 2 on eBay, 1 on Amazon, 1 on their own direct.com site, followed by Walmart.
I was expecting more Amazon.
Yeah, so was I.
I wonder, like, for those people that are doing eBay, what category of products are you selling?
And we got another Amazon coming in. So let's carry on and let's hear. I'll find out what they're selling in on eBay. Apple computers.
Cool. Yeah, just curious because like that's the other part of it is we kind of call it category relativity. And so essentially like when you take a certain type of product, what is the expectation in terms of how it should sell? Like different products do well on different channels. Again, that's where Skubana can help you break down this data.
Right.
Refurbished designer handbags. Cool. Let's go on to the next one.
Cool.
One more. Got a lot of title slides in here.
Sorry.
Cool. So the challenges of using multi-channel FBA. So I think a lot of people might know this as MCFBA. A few things that I've seen merchants come up against is you can't use it on Walmart. I've heard of people doing it, and then when items start showing up in Prime boxes, they immediately get shut off. So you can give it a shot, but I wouldn't recommend it. And the other thing is that with Deliverr, we'll help you get the badges. You can get pro seller accounts. If any orders do go out late or anything like that, essentially Walmart will look at Deliverr and say, hey, what's going on? It's not going to impact your account per se. So that's a big thing where I would not use MCFBA for Walmart for all those reasons. Some of the other things is that we are able to offer next day, 2-day, 3-day dynamic badging, not just on Amazon, but on your other channels. If you're using MCFBA, you won't be able to dynamically promote this speed of delivery. So that's an opportunity you're missing out, particularly what if someone does a search, they find your product, they look at it on your website, and they're like, okay, they're about to check out and they see that it's $5.99 shipping and they're not going to get it for 5 days. My guess is what they're going to do next is they're going to search it and put Amazon on the back end of it. Then they're going to do it with Prime. And so this is an opportunity to increase conversion and hold people on your site. Other thing is obviously the Amazon branded packages. I think particularly if you're selling on other marketplaces, that's a big issue. I think it's up in the air a little bit about like having Prime and using Amazon for that. And like, does that impact it? I've heard people say both ways, that they do like the Prime boxes, other people don't, other people like unbranded. So I think that can be a little bit of a personal preference there. And then obviously the last thing is when Amazon all of a sudden says, no more chocolate for 6 months, or here's your limitation on your whole account. Those are not things you're going to run into when you're using Deliverr, for example. So typical 3PL, I'd say really high level. The thing to remember about Deliverr is that I would almost describe us as infrastructure as a service. We're using warehouses and infrastructure that already exists, and we're a technology that's essentially piecing all this stuff together. And so we're using this data and technology in order to distribute and then find the best way to get product from as close to the consumer as possible to the consumer. And so naturally, with all this technology behind it, we're going to be able to offer better rates on faster shipping. And, so I'll just leave it at that. It'll be better rates, it'll be faster shipping. And the reason is technology. The other thing is that it's flat rate. So there's no zonage, there's no unpredictability. Fast shipping programs, I would specifically highlight like Google Shopping. That's an instance where we're one of the only providers that's approved to have fast tags. So again, if someone's doing that search, you're paying for PLAs, you can be the product up there that has the Prime-like badge, which is just going to make you win more orders with the marketing that you're already spending money on. Last thing is I've seen people get launched on Deliverr in about a week. So particularly if you run into some type of issue, you need to move over to a 3PL really fast. You can do that with Deliverr very quickly. You just get basically a slot with a sales rep. They can get you fully set up and ready to inbound in about 30 minutes. Beautiful thing beyond that is we don't have contracts. So hopefully we have a long-term relationship, but even like in between, if you just kind of need somewhere to get that product, be a backup to Amazon, of course, we'll try to work with you to go multi-channel with that product. But there's no commitments to that end. It's very much like pay as you go, kind of like an Uber-like model, very flexible. So, if you're not going to get locked into a contract, and I don't think anyone wants that. So big opportunity.
No. So we do have another poll question coming up. So again, put it in the chat, but how do you fulfill your orders on those channels? So if we're talking about Amazon, are you doing FBA? Are you doing FBM? What does it look like for Walmart? What does it look like for eBay? What does it look like on a D2C site? Are you guys using, traditional shipping methods? Are you using a 3PL? What does it look like? So we have a Deliverr user in here. I think we had a few because I saw some comments before. We have a 3PL and FBA, FBM for all channels, a 3PL, FBA.
A lot of 3PL and FBA, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, it seems, yeah. So, you have to figure out how to get to the end consumer.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I mean, they're definitely all good solutions, I think there. I just think, again, the opportunity is if it's a 3PL, we can offer faster and lower cost shipping. If it's FBA, it's that multi-channel of that opportunity. Like I say, stick with FBA, definitely stick with FBA. They have the best rates. They're going to get you the Prime tag, but it's really about taking inventory and splaying it out in different directions and using Prime to sell there. So quick little plug on why to use us to fulfill across channels.
Well, let's jump into why Deliverr as well.
Cool. So a lot of these things that we've kind of covered here, no contracts, flat upfront pricing. Sounds like everyone is pretty much an Amazon seller. So if you want to know what it would cost to work with Deliverr, just go and grab the URL or the ASIN from your product listing. We have a cost calculator on our website. So you just drop it right in there and it'll pull the weights and dims and it'll tell you what the fulfillment is. Fulfillment's flat rate. It includes pick, pack, order, handling, and shipping. Only other cost is storage. So very transparent. You'll know what it is. You don't have to sign up with a contract and you can offer next day, 2 day, 3 day, etc. Let's go on to the next. So how do we do it? I've already alluded to it a few times, but we have a distributed network of over 50 warehouses. So traditionally what you're going to see is that when you're working with Deliverr, you're going to have product up in the Northeast. So probably like Pennsylvania or New Jersey, Southeast, like Atlanta, Georgia, middle of the country, like Southern Illinois or Northern Texas, and then West Coast, like Las Vegas, LA, San Fran. So if I place an order and I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, chances are the product's coming no further than Atlanta, Georgia. If someone's in New York and they place an order, probably coming no further than New Jersey or Pennsylvania. So ultimately, that's the secret sauce, is don't ship products very far. And that way, the only thing that is standing in the way of fast delivery is processing, just getting it out of the warehouse in time. We can ultimately use like ground methods in order to still do fast shipping.
Tim, I have a question on this, if I may. Is Deliverr auto balancing the inventory across the different locations?
Exactly. So we essentially have an algorithm, and that's why we have like the flat rate upfront pricing. Is ultimately it's on us and our technology in order to get the product appropriately distributed. So for our merchants, they totally get to decide what they want to send in. They tell us the number of SKUs and what quantities. Essentially what we'll generate is just like a packing list, box content labels, and saying, hey, send your product to these locations, or we have a cross dock and then we'll just forward it on and distribute it automatically.
So for those familiar with the FBA model in terms of shipping to different FBA warehouses around the country or even around the world, similar in that sense.
Yep, very similar. The one advantage I'm going to throw out there is that for our forwarding right now, bless you, Chad, saw you sneeze there. One of the advantages with our forwarding, this is like a little plug, hopefully you guys will go and get Deliverr and get moving quickly, because our forwarding is free right now. So if you do send it to a cross dock, you just pay for that first step and then it'll get forwarded on. Can't guarantee it's going to be like that all year. So take advantage, get the products in and distributed at a very low cost using Deliverr in our cross docks.
So yeah, one question came in that's a bit timely here. It says, can I send my inventory on pallets to your warehouse, since their warehouse is in California as well?
Yep, very much preferred, particularly if you're doing a container, it cannot be floor loaded, so it will need to be palletized, which is something that we run into sometimes when it's coming from overseas, is it'll be floor loaded. We'll have to use a 3PL or something like that to get it palletized and then inbounded. And I always love pallets more than parcels, you know, the more the better. So.
All right, cool.
Cool. So I personally really like this graphic. I think it does a great job of sort of like highlighting where Deliverr fits into this fulfillment space. So let's imagine that the very bottom, the red little boxes, FBA and Deliverr, this is your existing inventory. And then when you go up, you'll see all the different sales channels. So Amazon all the way through eBay. And then above that, what we would call discovery channels. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Google. So what we're going to enable is one distributed stock. All of these channels we see here will be able to enable Prime-like badgings like eBay guaranteed fast and free, Walmart 2-day. We can also push that dynamic badging to where you're advertising, Instagram, Facebook, those are the ones you see up there. Over on the left, you'll see that's the little Amazon piece. That's where we can be a backup and a redundancy. Again, we're encouraging FBA. We're just saying that during this time and when it's unpredictable, you already have inventory with Deliverr, you're making money selling it elsewhere. It could also keep your listings live on FBM if you're in a pinch.
And kind of as we saw last year, about a year ago or a little less, a little more, is when things become unpredictable, there's not much time to get set up and you know, try and figure it out from there. You might have already had all your inventory, say, in you know, waiting to be uploaded into Amazon, and then they only wanted, you know, PP, protective personal, one of those things. So that, you know, that could have prevented your business from doing that. So being prepared before the event, whatever it may be, might happen.
Yeah, it's one of the like kind of terms I like to use is redundancy in your supply chain. You always have to have a backup.
Wait, you said it way better than I did. Oops, sorry.
All right, so really what this is highlighting is that, you know, we do direct consumer fulfillment. We're basically like an automated solution, and that's the service we provide. What would I say is our main value proposition? It's offering and promoting fast delivery, because when you can do that and you can fulfill quickly, it's a revenue driver. It's going to increase your conversion, increase your sales, and reduce, say, your marketing spend. And so ultimately, it's going to improve your margins just by offering and promoting fast delivery.
Cool.
This right here is an example of if you have a Shopify store. We also do have like a dev kit where you install these dynamic badges on other types of stores like BigCommerce, WooCommerce, etc. Essentially what it is it reads the consumer's IP address. That helps us identify what is their zip code. And then we have real-time carrier and warehouse data. So it essentially like looks at where they're at, and then it reverse engineers from there, and it promotes the speed of delivery. So that's how we're able to accurately predict it'll be 2 day, it'll be next day, and the badge is going to change, obviously with us trying to offer fast as possible, because that's the faster, the higher the conversion. We go to the next. So this is just another example where I would say on the left, this is like that Shopify store, it's mid-funnel conversion. In the middle, that's Google. So it's where people are going to first find your products. And if you're advertising, also include the advertisement of fast delivery. On the right, just reiterating the idea that we fulfill from the closest warehouse and product to the consumer at time of purchase.
Cool.
Here's a few examples of Instagram and Facebook campaigns that our merchants have run, where you integrate with our Facebook, Instagram, your Facebook ads manager, and then Deliverr. We're going to automatically segment your campaign. And so then all you would do as the brand is you would drop in the designed graphics with promotion of speed of delivery, run the campaign.
Sweet. And then I think one of the next parts is talking about optimizing your marketing spend, right?
Exactly. Well, so taking the idea of like those different advertisements through Facebook and Instagram, that's actually from real trials that we ran, where the idea is, and what we proved out through these trials is, you should invest in faster delivery. You should offer faster delivery, even if it's more cost. And I think the first people that proved this out was Amazon. They built a network, they offered fast delivery, not because it was the lowest cost option, but because it made their marketing and acquisition to the channel that much more effective. So it was paying a little bit more upfront and faster delivery, and then a windfall coming back in terms of acquiring customers on a Prime. So what this shows us, take one step back. So what this shows us and what we ran on the trials is we essentially just did dynamic segmentation. One group, we're not offering or promoting speed of delivery. We're doing the lower cost standard option. Then we had one where we were offering 2 day and we were promoting it, and then next day. And essentially what this showed us is that in this instance, you're going to pay about $2.50 more per order for fulfillment. But for 2 day, for example, you're going to pay about $10 less in marketing. So it's more holistic than just fulfillment and that cost. It's fulfillment and marketing to acquire. And I'd argue in most instances, the marketing makes up a lot bigger portion of that acquisition piece. And so that's where we're ultimately coming in, is we're coming in as a fulfillment provider that drives better marketing and can impact your margins much further.
Cool.
That's pretty much it. It's just a nice little graphic here showing going multi-channel and all the different channels you can hook up to Deliverr. I got nothing to say on this one.
All right, cool. So the last part that I'll touch on briefly here is you know, if you're familiar with Payoneer, you kind of know what we're working with here. If not, happy to briefly go over it, but you can touch or contact me at the end. And happy to talk in. But you know, ultimately, we are a platform that helps businesses that are selling online. So what does that mean? Typically and historically, we had only been helping businesses that were selling cross-border. But in reality, what we've done is we realized there's a large opportunity to help the domestic seller who's selling just in the US. So if you look at our whole suite of products, just one of them here is our working capital solution. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit and sort of how that can help you expand your business to diversify, as Chad and Tim have also gone into in different levels. But before we go there, just want to briefly touch on the international receiving account. So if you are selling and listing on an international account, and I know there was a question about Walmart Canada and Amazon Canada, which we'll get to at the end. If you're listing your products on those marketplaces, you're most likely going to get paid in local currency. Similarly, if you're selling on a D2C site, depending on how you set it up, you can get paid in local currency. So instead of the marketplace or any other solution converting the funds back, what Payoneer does is give you the ability to receive funds into your Payoneer account in whatever currency you'd like, and give you more freedom and flexibility to pay out, whether that's to a supplier or a freelancer, to a vendor, withdraw back to your own bank account, any sort of VAT or tax solution. And then also here, if you look at the top, is Payoneer's Capital Advance Program. So this is a program that we launched about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And what it really was out of customer feedback, right? So businesses wanted to, or businesses had relayed the message that cash flow and capital is an incredible issue for them. And I think that's no secret in the world of e-commerce. So what we did is we created our own solution to help businesses fund their growth and go beyond, to kind of wrap that whole circle up. So we have this solution where if you are selling on Walmart or Amazon, any of the US or European Amazons, you're actually eligible for an advance based on your future sales receivables. Some of the performance data that we look at via MWS is on the right there, but essentially you have to be a seller in good standing, and you have to be selling for at least 1 year, which I think is actually changed. I think it's just 6 months, so I need to update that. But within that, there's 3 offerings that we have, and it's a Capital Advance Express, which is what we call our gateway offering. And why that's important is it's a low value entry offer. And why that's important is because we don't do any credit checks. We don't do any, credit checks or bank statement checks or anything like that. We're typically just looking at your disbursements from those marketplaces that mentioned. Then there's 2 more upgraded offers, depending on which one you'd like. It's up to 100% of your monthly volume, or even 140%. And the key portion here is the flexible repayment model. So the collection per seller payment is a percentage, and that's important because, as we know, in the world of selling online, there's natural ebbs and flows to your business, right? So when you are, maybe you have the buy box, maybe you lose the buy box, maybe you run out of inventory, maybe you're not set up with Deliverr and Skubana and you're not optimizing your opportunity. We know that potentially you might have a week or 2 where your sales are down. So we're not here to bankrupt you and say you owe us 10 grand each month on that side of things. So it's a flexible repayment model with pretty attractive pricing, which is a flat fee. So if we look here, in this instance of a business taking a $100,000 offer, after a grace period, we would take a percentage of each disbursement to help or to repay the advance that went out. And if you look at the green box here on the right, the total repayment amount is $104,000, which is the $100,000 plus a 4% fee, which is a flat fee. And I think that's also important in terms of setting expectations and bookkeeping and et cetera. That fee is not going to change like a traditional loan if you pay it back sooner or if you pay it back later. We, like I said, with the percentage-based collection, understand that that's how businesses work. And the good part is, whether you pay it back sooner, pay it on time, maybe pay it a week or 2 later than this, you're eligible for another advance. So, this product is about 100 days, about 3 to 4 months. From there, you could take 2 or 3 of these a month. And what we've actually seen is a lot of businesses wanting to, and actually taking multiple of these offers per month. So that's my really quick portion on working capital. Like we said, these are our emails. There's a number of questions here in the Q&A, so I will go through them. And the first one's for you, Tim. Does Deliverr handle returns, or do you have a partner that might help with that in terms of getting the product back to the seller?
Cool. So very short answer here is no. We do not do returns as it is today. And I think there's like a few different solutions or like questions I typically have around returns. And just like what I'm seeing, like really high level, a lot of e-commerce merchants are starting to look at like donations. So if someone doesn't want a product, they'll just have it donated. I know that can build a lot of goodwill, especially around sustainability. The other part of it is that a lot of products nowadays, the cost of getting the product sent back, like between sending out, sending back, all the other acquisition, will actually just further impact their margins. And so sometimes they say, just keep it, particularly if it's like a supplement or other stuff like that. So the last thing I would throw out here is that Deliverr is optimized for direct-to-consumer fulfillment. And so we don't do a lot of the other like traditional 3PL things, at least not today. And so a lot of our merchants will have sort of like a long-term storage warehouse or somewhere that's kind of their home base, and they'll send in regular shipments to deliver from there. So what I'm recommending is if you have that warehouse or somewhere else that's like your home base where you hold stock most often, I'd have it sent there. If we do get something, we'll contact you and either send it back to you or we'll just dispose of it. But again, that has an added cost. So
cool. Chad, this question's for you, and maybe you can give your perspective as a seller in this instance. It said for FBA and off marketplaces, how do you manage tax collection? Additionally, any recommended software that integrates QuickBooks, Enterprise, and Amazon?
Yeah, so tax collection is tricky. There's Avalara to Avatax. There's TaxJar, which was just acquired by Stripe. Those are the two main ones that I'm familiar with. But we do automate it with technology to actually have that coming from all of our channels into one place. And we pull a lot of that data, by the way, from Skubana. And then two, I think the second question was QBO.
Yes.
Well, it depends on how many channels you're on, right? There's like sort of like single channel connectors to QBO. If you're doing high volumes, those things typically collapse fairly quickly and they're not very robust either. And so Skubana has built our own QBO connector that goes from Skubana into QBO that's fairly robust.
And Chad, if somebody wanted to find how the pricing works for Skubana, where would they do that?
Well, Skubana, we're definitely more of a operations platform for a more advanced seller. So we start at $1,000 a month and we go all the way up. But if they actually are interested, they can always just reach out to me at Chad@Skubana and I'll help them out.
Cool. Next question. There's two of these questions surrounding Deliverr is, A, do you support international delivery from the US and or more specifically Walmart Canada?
So I'm glad that we just have this question because I can finally, at long last, say yes, we can do international shipping. Thank you for the round of applause. So like what I would say with a caveat is that we're still shipping from the US. Right. So it's going to be kind of like that standard service level. And we are in a beta currently. And so we do need to make sure that it goes to the appropriate warehouses, which are enabled for international. Not every single one of our warehouses currently is. So if you are planning on inbounding to Deliverr and you need international services, just make sure you communicate with their rep and we can ensure that it goes to the appropriate warehouses. Okay.
Cool. I think this question is from when Chad was on. When talking about the marketplaces that you support, or maybe even Tim, it says, do you guys support invite-only marketplaces like Target and Lowe's?
So yeah, we do, but you have to be invited. And so we support those in our app store. So the answer, at least on Skubana side, is yes.
Okay. Tim, do you have an answer for that?
It'll be yes as well. I think, so Target, we have a lot of customers who do use Target today. It's, in my opinion, a great marketplace. And so if you can get approved, do it. The volumes are good. ultimately with the other channels, like if you have a tool like Skubana and it'll help you get the orders from that channel over to Deliverr, as long as we get it over to Deliverr, we can fulfill it. I think what I would caution the sellers to do is if it is like Lowe's or Kohl's or something else like that, just confirm with them that there's no need for special types of packaging, specific carriers, inserts that need to go in, because we're not set up to do sort of like the specific marketplace things if they need that. So even if the order finds its way to us, we just want to make sure that we're kind of doing all the right things by the merchant and that your fulfillment going out is compliant with whichever marketplace.
Okay, cool. There's a couple questions about Payoneer. So it's asking, is our capital advance product a one-time loan or more like a business line of credit? I would say it's neither of those. It technically classifies as a merchant cash advance. I guess it would operate as a one-time loan, but as I mentioned, you are able to get a recurring offer should you pay back and maintain your good standing as a seller. For Chad, does Skubana integrate with Walmart Canada and Kroger EDI? Which I'm not sure.
Yeah,
what
Walmart Canada, yes, we have an integration with, and Kroger, yes, grocery store. We have 4 different EDI providers in the App Store. So whether it's SPS or B2B Gateway or EasyCom, Act Data, and I think there's even one more in the App Store that I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but the answer is yes, again.
Okay. Cool. I think we are getting towards the end of it. What I would suggest is if you have any other questions, maybe more personal questions, which I do see one in here, feel free to email the respective party on the screen there. We'll be able to help or get sorted or answer any questions you may have. We are coming to the top of the hour as well. So if there are no other questions coming in, I'm happy to wrap this up. I would like to really say thank you to Chad, thank you to Tim, to Skubana and Deliverr. I think we had over 50 slides, so I think we managed to get through them pretty quickly. Like I said, everyone will get the recording of this. We'll also get the slides with the contact details. So if anybody has any further questions, feel free to connect with any of us, and we are happy to help you guys in any way. So
Thanks,
Appreciate
TJ.
it.
Thanks, Tim.
of course. So thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Yes.
You too.